All right, so welcome to this latest edition of Venue Visionaries. My name is Gil Freed,
And I'm Matthew Castell.
and we're glad to be here. And this is the time of the year, summertime, where you have a lot of things that can go wrong. Just imagine if it was your house and your AC broke when it was a hot, humid summer day, and how frustrating that would be. Well, just imagine that if you're having a stadium with numerous systems and things go wrong. So, this episode, we're going to be looking at what happens when things go wrong, how to manage the maintenance, repairs, upkeep, and stuff like that of the different systems within a building. And there is this myth that if you build it, they will come. The reality is there's going to be so many ongoing costs. In fact, up to 70% of a stadium's total cost comes from the maintenance over, let's say, a 30-year period. If you can get it to last longer, to 50 years as an example, then during those additional 20 years, it's going to skyrocket just because things get older. Just like I'm getting older, we're all getting older. So building a facility is just the start. You've been through this numerous times, Matt, and you deal with this on a day-to-day basis. What can you tell us about the data that you collect, how you utilize that data? How does that shape what your actions are going to be and things like that?
So that is the key to preventative maintenance, and it's really becoming more important as we go on. It gets more sophisticated types of equipment that we need to maintain. When it comes to maintenance, we track everything, Gil. We do it with a CMMS. CMMS is a computerized system that tracks all your maintenance work, and it's not unique to Oriole Park. Pretty much every stadium and arena and any large sports facility is going to do that as well. Interestingly enough, the CMMS was developed in the late 70s for hospitals because they had to track life-saving equipment, obviously, like in operating rooms. And stadiums are no different, and big, large facilities are no different. And we have life-saving equipment that we have to track as well. But we track everything with a CMMS. It's the best way to track maintenance to make sure it's done. For example, last year I had 12,000, give or take, pieces of maintenance that would pop up in my CMMS that would say, do it. And maintenance comes in my world, three forms. There's preventative maintenance, those things that you do on a regular basis, such as changing filters for an air conditioning unit, uh, fire extinguisher inspections, testing your alarm system, testing your elevators. That's preventative maintenance. And that's the kind of work you do so you don't have a break, so hopefully that you do it so things don't break on you. And then you have demand work, and demand work is things that do break. We get a seat that's broken at Oriole Park. It's called into us, and we create what we call a demand ticket, and we enter it into our system. And then the third type of maintenance we do is event maintenance. That's the things that are called in during an event. So between those three buckets, we do about 12,000 work orders a year. The most critical ones are the life safety ones, like I said, and the preventative maintenance ones that you're doing to hopefully get to the point where things don't break on you before without you expecting it. And honestly, um, we take it to such a detail that if you gave me a certain seat number, I could look it up in our CMMS and tell you who worked on it, where and when, how much it cost in labor and material. And we can give you a really good accounting of all our maintenance. So that way we can make decisions. Are we at the end of life for certain maintenance? Um, is this, are we, is there a pattern that we're not seeing that you may not be aware of day to day, but if you look at the data, that it becomes important. Our CMMS is crucial for us, and it even helps spit out our work to our maintenance worker. Every morning they come in, and on their cell phone, they'll have their work orders for the day, what they're supposed to do, 8 or 10 work tickets, depending on how much each work ticket is going to take. And they'll pull it up, go to that area, do their work, and then type in notes of that maintenance, even sometimes snap a picture if it's relevant and put it into the work order. And collecting that data is the key, because without that, you know, place like Oriole Park or any large facility, you're not going to remember that it's time to time for the 5-year test for the elevators. It's time for the quarterly sprinkler test and so on and so forth. So without data, you're lost.
I remember the good old days, and many of our listeners or viewers probably wouldn't be able to relate that far back. We used to keep it on index cards and used to write on it, okay, we changed the oil filter on this pump this date. And then you just constantly had to go back to the card. And then sometimes you try to leave the card, buy the equipment in an envelope, and it might get lost, and then you don't know. The computer management maintenance system, CMMS, is just so critical because of how many systems are within a typical building. So let's just go through some of the typical examples that you might see within a large sport venue, and we can just break down some of them. One of the first ones is HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. How large of a chiller plant do you guys have there for Camden Yards?
Oh, it's extremely large. We have 3 chillers, and right now we actually are supplying M&T Bank Stadium with chilled air as well. Now we're going under construction, so we're actually adding chillers and putting new chillers in. So that's expanding, and then M&T will have their own ability to with their own chillers as well. But chillers are hugely important, and if you're ever in a sporting event in the suites or offices and the HVAC goes out in the summertime, you know how critical it is. We even have an ice bank here at Oriole Park that we build ice. So if we lose our chillers, it can provide a couple of hours of cooling for us. So hugely important.
Yeah, and there are some examples out there like Kettering Ice Arena last year put $10 million to replace their compressors, roof, and their AC. Aging units, it happens. I mean, there's more energy efficient units, so it might be upgrading for the sake of saving money, or it could be that a system breaks down. The cost drivers for something like that often are going to be the specialized parts. Now that we're going to be looking at tariffs, that might impact the ability to bring in certain parts. And then the labor, do you have enough skilled labor to actually do the repairs? So how many tradespeople do you guys have at Camden Yards that work there that could do this kind of work?
Right. Well, we have for our chillers, we rely heavily on contractors. We used to have an internal team that did it for us, but over time we learned that we didn't have the day-to-day expertise to do it. So we have one stationary engineer who sort of in charge of it, but he has a contractor that are here in the building during normal business hours and on call 24/7, and obviously for events too. And again, it's one of those critical areas. And some states mandate that you have to have a stationary engineer on site at all hours. I think I was visiting where the Mets play, and I think they had a stationary engineer that had to be on site 24/7 because that's what the city of New York or the state of New York mandated. So it is very extremely labor intensive, and it's also not just labor intensive. It's a knowledge based labor that you have to have. It's not somebody coming. It's not somebody green who's doing it. It has to be a licensed person.
And then depending on the jurisdiction, the contract, it might be a unionized person as well. And then you have to go through the union channels to report it and to get it repaired and things like that. So it could be a headache. Other areas that we have include technology infrastructure. Like for Super Bowl 59 that we had just this past year, they spent $50 million on cellular and Wi-Fi upgrades to get to the latest Wi-Fi 6E, and it still had glitches. So you're trying to do better, make something better, improve quality, whatever it might be, and there could be glitches. Structural repairs, Olympic Stadium in Montreal, which You know, that was the Montreal Olympic Games in 1976. They've had decayed roof, water damage, $2 billion plus in lifetime repairs due to poor maintenance. And so that becomes part of the thing is that why do you want to stay on top of it? Is you want to avoid these costly bills that can just keep escalating if you don't take care of it. I've seen stats, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing, Matt, that for every dollar of damage done to a roof, that it causes $8 worth of damage inside the venue.
Yeah, for sure. It's, structural repairs you have to stay on, and structural maintenance you have to stay on top of. And the tough thing about that sometimes is what's your preventative maintenance for structure? Sometimes it's just going to have to be observation. Do you see a crack in the building? Do you see rust on a beam that may show that it's starting to wear? So structural challenges are tough to maintain because there's, like, a lot of times, for an example of a preventative maintenance we'll do, we have a lot of ad panels that are encased in structural steel. So we'll get somebody on the lift before the start of every season to make sure that there's no damage, like no rust, no looks like wear and tear on the steel, because if one of those came down in a game, it would be horrific. And sometimes, frankly, we have questions because sometimes you're not sure. And at that point, you really have to have the ability, and fortunately we do here, to get a hold of the engineers who can come out and look at it and give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, or if it's a thumbs down, what's the scope of work to get it repaired properly.
And one of the things that I know you know very well deals with structural issue of escalators or escalators. And elevators and escalators have their own huge issues because these are very complex pieces of equipment that are running nonstop. And then you can have overload issues with people on it and things like this. And you've had to replace the escalators at your stadium, correct?
Correct. And we have escalators that it's an outdoor stadium, so they're outdoors. So you can imagine the wear and tear they get being in the elements. So we had to build awnings over them, which creates another maintenance steps. But yeah, the maintenance of elevators and escalators can't be stated enough. It's one of those hidden dangers that you really have to stay on top of. We have a robust maintenance program. We actually have a full-time contractual mechanic that's here at Oriole Park and M&T Bank Stadium 40 hours a week, just because we found that there was so much work between all the elevators and escalators that it was a full-time job just maintaining and doing those simple repairs. And sometimes the repairs aren't simple. Sometimes it's a two-man job, and it's dangerous work too that has to be done by the right people. You don't want a mechanic to get on top of an elevator for a repair, and then somehow the power gets cut back on, because that will be the end of that mechanic. And those type of accidents, unfortunately, happen all the time throughout the country. So it's really important.
And there are accidents. Some accidents are preventable, some are not. I had a situation in my home. Someone came in to repair a treadmill, and while they were lying on top of it, trying to clean things out, it started up, but at the highest gear, and shot them against the wall. You know, safety is an important thing. So you have to have the right people, the right equipment, the right knowledge of how to fix it, and to be able to do it on a continual basis, because it's not like this is a once in a month kind of issue. You're probably lucky if you have a day where you don't have something that goes wrong. Is that true?
I mean, you heard me. I have 12,000 work orders within a year. So if you do the math between 365, they're not all preventative maintenance, or they're not all from events. You can't have a campus this large and not have some sort of problem. I tell people to think of it this way: new stadiums cost hundreds of millions of dollars this day. So it's a it's a lot of real estate you're covering. It's a lot of real estate you're taking care of, and there's a lot that can go wrong from small to mid-sized to large. And every day, every day is a little different, and every day is an active day here.
There's no what rest for the weary, as they say.
Yeah.
And that is very true on the venue operations side. So if we're taking a look at it, and we have a list of all these different kind of things, whether it's routine concrete restoration to extend the lifespan of a stadium, to UV resistant sealants that prevent degradation of elements of a venue. All these little things are critical. There's now augmented reality glasses where you can look at a piece of equipment and you can see the schematics of it right in front of you in your lens. And it's great having this material, but you have to be able to have the people that know how to use it and that can leverage that to maximize the return on the investment. Because you invest a lot of money in the venue, you want to make sure it stays open and doesn't close down as quick as possible. So if we're trying to take a look at some of the key takeaways, one I think is for planning for obsolescence. Material can only last a certain amount of time. So it's not like, hey, we built it, that's great, and let's walk away. Think of it like your home. There's always going to be something you need to do, something that needs to be upgraded or repaired or things like that.
Well, yeah, for the key takeaway is one, you have to know what your equipment is in your facility. You have to know a lot about it and track all that information, how old it is, what its useful life is, what does the user manual say to do to maintain it. You have to set that up correctly. It's one thing to say you're going to maintain something, but if you're putting the wrong filters in an HVAC unit, you're not doing it justice, and it's going to have a short lifespan. So you have to know all your information, track it, and then have a plan to get it maintained.
So that goes to the preventive, and the more you can be preventive, it minimizes as much as possible the reactive. Because one thing is, just like your own car, if you change the oil, change the filters, put in the right gas, all that, hopefully that's going to be preventive and it'll last a long time. Versus if you have a transmission that fails on you, then you're going to be in the reactive state and you might not make the best decisions. You might be bothered by the concept of sunk costs that you've already put so much into it. I have to feel like I'm going to put more into it in order to sustain it or to get it back running. Stakeholder collaboration also goes into that. You need as many eyes and ears as possible out there. You can't do a CMMS system with one person. You have to have all the different stakeholders, whether it's the ushers, ticketing people, people that are doing the concessions, people that are cooking the food, all these different individuals. They're going to have to come and communicate and feel like they can raise an issue with you without it being like, oh, I don't want to talk to Matthew because he's going to get upset with me if I say that this is wrong. We'd rather have you tell us now so we can correct it rather than put it off to the wayside and then a month later it's a huge issue rather than what could have been a small issue.
And on the flip side of that is there are going to be times where things do break and aren't going to be working correctly, or there's going to be times where we're going to have to maintain something that's going to take something out of service that's important to our stakeholders. And you're right, communication is the key. At those times, we just can't say, oh, we're going to take this elevator out of service for a couple of hours and randomly do it. We have to check to make sure there's not an event going on. When's a good time to do it? And then even when we do it, notify our partners and our stakeholders to say, hey, this bank about escalators is not going to be working today, so they're not planning to use it, and then all of a sudden you get there and you can't. So it's a two-way street. With the stakeholders have to communicate with the facilities team. The facilities team has to communicate with the other stakeholders as well.
That's why command center is so critical during game days, because you get everyone to be able to communicate effectively with one another. And with the CMMS system, you could have it where it notifies all the key stakeholders all at once if there's an issue. So that way the minds can meet if need be and find a solution at that point. That leads us to our final question for this episode. And what I want people to think about is, what process do they go through when they have a piece of equipment in their home, in their dorm, their car, whatever it is, and it has a check engine light or something fails? What do you do? Because that's somewhat similar to what happens at a stadium or arena. So I want people to think about it and come up with a list of what are the different ideas that go through your mind the first thing that you have when you see something's wrong. And it's not swearing, that might be something you mightn't say, but it's going to be different. What is that list? What's going to be part of that list? So let's take a quick break and we'll have our intermission music, and then we'll come back with our perspective of what should be part of that process. All right, I hope everyone had a good break. We're back. Matt, what would you think about in terms of if this happened at your house or your car, about what to do?
I'd probably honestly second guess myself and say, what could I have done not to get in this situation? You use the car as for an example. Am I getting the oil change when they say to? Am I getting my tires rotated? Am I changing the spark plugs when they should? And so on and so forth. And honestly, working here, I sort of incorporate some of those principles into my personal life, because I think we've all experienced it. There's nothing worse when you're in the middle of nowhere on a cold or a rainy day and you go to start up your car, especially the day before cell phones, and you go and it doesn't work. And if it was something that you could have prevented just by taking some proactive steps, you want to think through, what can I do so I don't get in that situation?
So thinking of that from the foresight is going to be a great strategy going forward in the future. Preventive maintenance is something that we've talked about during the course of this episode as well. And that's, do you take it to a trusted mechanic? Do you do the work yourself? If you do the work yourself, are you qualified to do it? Did you put all the parts back, or is there one extra part after you fixed it and like looking at it going like, where does this go? And you just hope the car will run without that part, so to speak. It's getting good quality equipment from the very beginning. If you have a high end item and you spend a lot of money on it, but you spent that because you know it lasts a long time, then it really helps you at least feel like I've taken at least one step to try to extend the life by buying something good. Having a warranty might be a good approach to think about, because if it's under warranty, you might be more akin to, let's get it fixed now rather than to hold off and hope that it repairs itself at a certain point. You also have sunk cost concept. I've already put in money. I guess I'm going to put some more money into it, versus sometimes it's good to say, let's just get rid of it. If it's a smaller appliance or something that doesn't cost a lot, we have a disposable society, and we basically have this concept of, if it's not working, let's get rid of it and buy something new. Unfortunately, that's not the best for the environment, but how much time do you want to spend on something if it's a small issue and you want to make a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing? So it's developing a plan. One of the big things that I often see people forget about is something called a sinking fund. You talked about like an escalator. Do you put money aside that when this happens, because you know it's going to happen, that you're going to have money available? Because that's probably where, just like an individual gets into trouble that, hey, I need a new car and I only have $1,000 in the bank. Well, that means you only have $1,000 maybe to buy a car. It's probably not going to be as good of a condition car. But if you've been putting aside $50 a month and you've been doing that for the last couple of years, you actually have a nice amount of money that you can put in to buy a car. So that's that forward thinking that you need to have. And when you have that forward thinking, I think it makes it a lot easier to maintain all the different pieces of equipment and systems within a building, and make it hopefully last as long as possible. Any final closing words, Matt?
No, those are words of wisdom. Just in your life, personal life or professional life, just make sure you maintain those things that are important to you as best you can.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching, and we hope to see you at the next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye.